Hey friends, welcome to this month's Elevate Life video think letter. If you're here, you're leading through high stakes transition. Whether navigating a merger, restructuring a company, or stepping into a new phase of your career as a professional athlete, the choices you make and the way that you lead will define your impact. Today, I'm back over at the United States Olympic and Paralympic Museum here in beautiful downtown Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm in front of my artificial leg that I donated to the museum after winning the Paralympic silver medal in the long jump in Sydney, Australia. One of the insights I have gained from looking at my leg and visiting this museum or looking at my silver medal is what can be accomplished if we focus our attention in our mind not just on the path that we are on, but the parallel paths of existence. For example, I want to be an Olympic class athlete, but I wind up becoming a Paralympic athlete in long jump. My desire was to be a 20-year service career member in the United States Army. And after my amputation and getting out of the military, I designed a program that now impacts over 10,000 injured service members. A few of them, or rather their stories, are here in the United States Olympic and Paralympic Museum as well. I enjoy being here because it reminds me of the excellence that we all desire to have as leaders. And this month, we're talking leadership lessons from none other than London Speakers Bureau agent, the extraordinary Dominic Eldrid-Earl. What an incredible man. I had the chance to meet him while I was visiting London. Actually, I was visiting Paris and took the train over to London. And I walked away with a ton of insights and maybe even a proper British cheerio. Now, let me tell you about Dominic. He spent most of his professional life in the events industry, working through the internet boom with macro media, designing interactive voting systems for meetings and conferences, and identifying some of the most entertaining and motivating speakers in the world. And for the last 10 years, he has been at the forefront of the matching top-tier talent with global audiences. Wow. But Dominic isn't just a man of business. He is a man of adventure. He's helped bottle feed and walk wolves, built a £1 million eco house in the woods, and even navigated the UK's canal system on his narrowboat. Yes, narrow, not wide. His passions include personal development, mental health, advocacy, fitness, and financial independence with Rebel Finance. Now, back to leadership. This month, we're breaking down 3 critical areas of being an inspirational leader. Clarity in communication. Your message is only as strong as the way that you deliver it. Creating socially rich work environments. The most successful leaders, they design spaces where innovation and engagement thrive. And then number 3, empathy. Driven leadership, connection, authenticity, and purpose are what people are moved by today. And we're going deeper into this conversation in the Elevate Life Executive Roundtable. We'll be at the end of the month. And if you're a CEO, senior leader, or professional athlete in transition, this is a conversation that you do not want to miss. So sign up now and let's dive in. Let's explore the Anarchist Guide to Meetings by Dominic Eldrid-Earl. You know, there's something about chaos that teaches us more about order. Dominic, in our fictional or perhaps not so fictional book, The Meeting Professional's Anarchist Guide to How to Destroy Your Next Event, lays out a hilarious yet painfully accurate roadmap to disastrous meetings. Let's take a quick listen in on a clip from our YouTube podcast, the one that I have called Amputate to Elevate Success, where I interviewed Dominic.
Oh, love to. Dominic, I always begin our podcast with a very simple question that tends to take us in a lot of different directions. You're writing a book, mythical book. It's a mythical book. It's entitled The Meeting Professional's Anarchist Guide to How to Destroy Your Next Event. What might be one of your chapter titles?
I actually came up with 2.
Great.
One which I only thought of this afternoon, based on my terrible performance at turning up on time. So that would be one of them. Ignore your timings. But the original one that I thought of is go out when you're planning your meeting with the worst brief possible. have no idea what it is you want to achieve.
Wow. So have you seen that happen? What's the story
Yes.
behind that?
Yes. I've had briefs of many types over the years. Ones where we don't know what date we want to have it. We don't know what budget we've got. We don't know what message we want to put across, uh, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, it can be a bit of a struggle at times trying to actually put forward the right sort of speakers for clients. They're just like, well, we're going to hold an event. We need a speaker. Other than that, we have no clue. So yeah, they can be challenging. They can also be very rewarding, to be fair, when you actually do manage to find the right speaker. So it's a matter of gently pursuing it.
Ooh, that's a bingo. Dominic throws out a couple of chapter ideas. First, ignore your timings, a nod to his own self-admitted struggle with punctuality. It's a subtle way of saying that if you want to derail a meeting before it starts, just don't show up on time. But then he takes it a step further. His second chapter, go out with the worst brief possible. What? No clear objectives, no set date, no budget, no messaging, just vibes. He's seen it firsthand. Clients who want an event but have no clue what is supposed to be accomplished. The result, a chaotic scramble to piece something together. And yet, when it all comes together, when the right speaker is finally matched to the right event, there is a certain magic, a magical moment that happens. So, what's the leadership lesson here? In high stakes transitions, whether leading a team through change, launching an initiative, or simply planning a critical meeting, clarity is king. The absence of clear objectives leads to inefficiency, confusion, and wasted time. Leaders must resist the temptation to figure it out along the way and instead establish a concrete vision. Because without direction, momentum turns into movement without purpose. Have you ever gone out and ignored your timings? As a professional speaker, one of the taboos is to ensure that you do not go over the allotted time for your presentation. The reason for this is because the conference professional is counting on you to keep their meeting on track. I remember a presentation I gave to real leaders in La Jolla. I was allotted 45 minutes for my section. However, when I went to the back of the room to put my headset on and talk to the AV crew and the production team, I realized that we were already 35 minutes behind schedule. So I asked the tech crew and the event leader if they needed me to cut my program to get us back on track. Fortunately, and I do mean fortunately, the answer was no, just do your set. They were very accommodating, and I wasn't going to steal time from the interaction that was coming up just before the lunch break. So after I finished the event professional stated that they wanted to take a few questions. So my 45 minutes actually turned into about 55 minutes with the Q&O, questions and opinions, because I have no answers. This is an example how not to ignore your timings by always staying in concert with the event planner. Had I needed to go the other way and cut the program and save time, I would have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been happy about it, but I would have adhered to my host to keep them on track. And I've done it before. After all, it's their meeting. Remember what we learned from Sylvia DeGiusto a few episodes back in the previous episode, that the hardest working person in the room is not the conference professional. It's not even me, the speaker. It is the audience member. As a leader leading high stakes transition, your team, they're the number one folks. Remember that the hardest working people are the ones you are leading. They are thinking hard about how to execute the directives and the mandates that we have to ensure that we are tight and concise. And the action step, take a hard look at how you enter high stakes conversations and projects. Are you walking in with a clear, structured briefing that you lay out for everybody? Are the expectations defined? If not, take a step back, redefine or refine what you ask, and before engaging your team, your stakeholders, or your event planners, make sure you can answer these questions. What's the goal? What's the timeline? What are the constraints? The clearer the input, the more impactful the output. Knowing these will allow you to elevate your stature because you will know where you are exactly going. Because as amusing as the Anarchist's Guide to Meetings might be, chaos is rarely a great leadership strategy. Secondly, creating socially rich work environments. The most successful leaders design spaces where innovation and engagement thrive. There was a time when meetings were very simple. Everyone gathered in a room, conversations flowed naturally, and body language spoke as loudly as the words. Then the world shifted, and suddenly we were all had to adapt. Dominic takes us on a deep dive into that transition, highlighting the differences between in-person and virtual meetings, the challenges they bring, and the benefits they offer. When it comes to in-person meetings, the advantages are very clear. There's a human element. Speakers can feel the energy in the room, adjust on the fly, engage directly with attendees, and build relationships, build rapport before getting on that stage. A handshake, even a shared laugh, even the ability to read micro expressions. These things create connection and trust. Dominic emphasizes that whenever possible, he prefers to meet speakers in person to evaluate how they interact both on and off the stage. That's why I took the train over from Paris to London. That offstage engagement, he says, is just as important as what happens in the spotlight. But virtual meetings? Yeah, that's a different beast. While they offer convenience, allowing global teams to connect without travel costs, they come with their own set of challenges, and virtual is very hard to do. Attention spans are shorter is one reason. Engagement is harder to maintain. Dominic notes that some of the best virtual speakers have invested in professional setups, TV quality lighting, crisp audio, dynamic video mixing, creating a high production experience that mirrors a polished media broadcast rather than a standard Zoom call. Some even pre-record their talks, producing a documentary-style presentation before going live for a seamless Q&A session. I remember the shift very well. Many of my speaker colleagues were struggling. I was struggling a bit as well with the shift. I kept hearing, we've never been here before. How can I do my keynote online? I don't want to use the Zoom platform. The way I pivoted was by watching talk show hosts. Though we as speakers may not have delivered a keynote speech online before, all the talk show hosts were doing this every night. They had a live studio audience, but most of the audience they had was watching them from home. And the person I found doing this the best was comedian Trevor Noah. I saw Trevor Noah, he was hosting the Daily Show at the time. He pivoted to his apartment and used his camera to show the show. I thought, now here's a guy who was figuring it out and figured it out. I began to mimic what Trevor was doing in my own personal and professional life. I would go to the park in an open space and record parts of my program. I would do it in a way where I could ask myself a question and then answer it in another area of my community. Let me give you a really quick example. Ready? Here we go. Okay. Have you ever thought of being in two places at one time?
Hey, John, why, yes, I have. Being in two places simultaneously is pretty easy, if you ask me. What do you think?
Yes, thanks, John, too. I think it allows for an interesting discussion between ourselves. All right, back to the audience. See how that becomes intriguing? I still do this with my in-person audiences now. I just interview their people and then bring them on stage through video or actually on the stage. It adds quite the dynamic. So what does this mean for leaders navigating high-stakes transition? Well, in high-stakes leadership, the ability to adapt how you communicate is just as important as what you communicate. If you're leading change, whether through mergers or restructuring or cultural transformation, you must master both in-person and virtual engagement. In-person settings allow for deeper connections and trust building, while virtual platforms enable scale and accessibility. Knowing when to use each and how to maximize their impact is key. My most recent client, Collins Aerospace, and RGP, another client, decided to do their conferences fully remote. So, does this mean a boring meeting? Not at all. I now go to my local studio, as Dominic suggested, and I have it all set up. I will tell you that it is harder to do a session remotely than in person. There are a lot more bells and whistles, and things can go wrong because tech goes wrong all the time. But it can be done. If you do not have the skill on your internal team to do this, book an external production crew. The reason you do this, especially for meetings, is that if people are watching a video screen, they are thinking Netflix. Here is an action step for you to consider. Take a dual audience approach to your leadership communication, whether leading a team or delivering high stakes messages, designing your engagement for both in-person and virtual settings. In physical spaces, focus on relational touch points, personal interactions, offstage moments, and deep dive conversations. In virtual spaces, lean into media savvy tactics, use dynamic visuals, shorter content bursts, and mixed media presentations to keep your audience engaged. If needed, invest in a higher quality virtual setup. Your ability to lead effectively in both environments will determine how well your message is received and ultimately how successful you are in navigating that change. And finally, number 3, empathy-driven leadership. Connection, authenticity, and purpose are what move people today. Mental health leadership and the future of work. The pandemic didn't just disrupt our routines, it altered the very fabric of how we engage with each other one-on-one. Students graduated without truly knowing their classmates. Young professionals started careers without ever setting foot in an office. And seasoned employees navigated a world where work and home became one. Dominic reflected on this shift not just as an observer in the corporate space, but as a father who watched his own child miss crucial stages of social development. Mental health and resilience have taken center stage, but the definitions of each has evolved. Resilience was once synonymous with endurance, the ability to push through no matter what. But today, it's also about recognizing boundaries, acknowledging strengths, and knowing when to ask for help. I call this the new resilience. It is not just about bouncing back, it is asking for help. Think about it. Think about where all we are right now. The number one issue facing a global market is loneliness. Leaders aren't just expected to drive results, they're expected to cultivate environments where employees feel seen, employees feel heard and supported, and yet leaders are still feeling isolated and lonely themselves. We have not allowed ourselves to grieve what we lost during the pandemic. And this shift has brought a surge of interest in neuroscience, happiness research, and even sleep science. Because an engaged, well-rested team isn't just happier, they perform better. And that brings us to leadership. Organizations are realizing that engagement isn't about pushing employees harder, it's about leading with empathy, pulling them along. The best leaders don't just manage tasks, they listen, engage, and inspire. And yet a starting statistic comes up. 80% of employees are disengaged at work, and as many as 30% are actively working against their company's success. What? That's not just a morale problem, it's a leadership failure. And it means employees don't feel connected to the mission, valued in their roles, or motivated to contribute beyond the bare minimum. This ties to another challenge, remote work. When companies first shifted to remote models, creativity surged for about 6 months. Then something changed. Without hallway charts, lunch breaks, brainstorms, or spontaneous office conversations, innovation began to decline. Dominic notes that while bringing employees back to the office might not be the full answer, creating social rich environments is. So what's the action step? Leaders must design workplaces, not just offices, that foster innovation and connection. This means moving beyond the binary choice of office versus remote. The future of work lies in hybrid, socially dynamic environments where employees have spaces to engage, create, and cross-pollinate ideas. Whether it's co-working hubs, industry meetups, or structured social interactions, leaders must be intentional about cultivating environments that stimulate both mental health and innovation. I often go to local coffee shops just so I can be around individuals. Because the companies that get this right, they'll be the ones that thrive in the next era of leadership. Leadership isn't just about strategy, it's about how you inspire, how you communicate, and how you create spaces where people want to grow and contribute. So whether you're leading through a company restructure or stepping into a new career after years of competition, the way you engage with your team and your peers will define your success. This month, we took a deep dive with Dominic Eldrid-Earl, a true powerhouse from the London Speakers Bureau. From navigating global events to coaching top-tier speakers, Dominic understands what makes leaders truly influential. And his insights on clarity, empathy, and creating the right work environments are exactly what today's high-stakes leaders need. So now it's your turn. Join us for this month's Elevate Life Executive Roundtable, where we will break down all of this and give you the tools to lead with impact. If you're serious about becoming the kind of leader who doesn't just manage change, but drives transformation, then this is where you need to be. Sign up and let's elevate your leadership to the next level. See you on Thursday for our accountability check-in. And make sure you watch the full episode on YouTube with Dominic on John Register Live. So go forth, inspire your world. See you next time. Cheerio. Bye for now.